Off the Shelf with Christine and Katie. This month we are sharing books about sibling relationships.
So for those who don't know, April 10th is National Siblings Day, and we wanted to highlight that special bond, both wonderful and complicated and everything in between. So, as always, settle in, grab a cup of your favorite beverage, and enjoy these recommendations. And feel free to read them now or add them to your TBR list for the future.
Let us know in the comments what you think of these books, or if you have any other books that you would like to add to this. And be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that little button down below if you want to be notified of new videos coming out. So, Katie, I think you should get us started with a book that we both love.
Yes, so a book we both love is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. You might have heard of it. And this is the coming-of-age story about four sisters growing up during the American Civil War, while their father is away serving the army. And this book is based on Alcott's own experience with her three sisters.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
A little thing I just learned. Next up, we have Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. Three estranged sisters who live very different lives return to their family home in New York after the sudden death of their fourth sister. They deal with the complicated relationships between them, including past rivalries and unresolved issues.
Okay, and the next one I know me and Christine both love is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This is a gothic tale of Mary Cat and Constance Blackwood, two sisters who live in isolation on their decaying family estate. Gothic vibes right there.
Gothic vibes.
Most of their family died from a mysterious poisoning, of which Constance was acquitted, but not in the eyes of the townspeople. I highly recommend this book. This was a blast to read.
Then we have another book that we both enjoyed, Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. Sally and Gillian are sisters born into a magical family, but mostly avoid magic themselves. When their parents die, they are taken in by their aunts. They form an extraordinarily close bond growing up as they are ostracized in their new community because of their aunt's reputation as witches. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie, too.
Yes, highly recommend the movie. It's very different from the book, though.
Yes. And in addition to that, if you enjoy this, check out the whole series that gives you the backstory about the aunts, their original ancestor who came over from England. It's fascinating read.
Yes, this is the prequel, highly recommended. The whole series is also great though, with the aunts and everything, so highly recommend the whole series. Okay, and the next book we want to recommend is called The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This is about two sisters, identical twins, growing up in an all small black town in 1940s Louisiana. When they run away to New Orleans at the age of 16, they wind up living different lives as one decides to pass as white to get a secretarial job. I've always heard this was an amazing book.
Sounds interesting. Next up, we have Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. This book tells the story of Rill Foss, a 12-year-old girl living on the Mississippi River with her siblings in 1939. Rill and her siblings are taken away by social workers while her parents are away, actually at the hospital while her mother's giving birth to another child, and placed in an orphanage. When they are separated and sold to wealthy families, Rill fights to keep her family together. And this is based on the true story of children taken and sold to wealthy families by Georgia Tan and the Memphis branch of the Children's Home Society Adoption Agency.
Okay, and the next one we want to recommend is called Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. And this is the story of two sisters who leave Shanghai for Los Angeles in the 1930s and their experience as Chinese immigrants in a new country. They are inseparable best friends who share hopes, dreams, and a deep connection. But like sisters everywhere, they also harbor petty jealousies and rivalries.
Always do.
Yeah, every sister ever.
Then we have The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. And this is about a recently released juvenile from juvenile detention center in 1954. 18-year-old Emmett sets out with his younger brother to drive across America from Nebraska to San Francisco, looking to start a new life. Adventure awaits as their plans get quickly derailed from the onset.
Okay, and our next sibling book recommendation is called Homegoing by Yagasi. And this takes place in both Ghana and America. This story follows the descendants of two half-sisters over 8 generations. It begins in the 18th century where one sister stays in Ghana and becomes the wife of a wealthy slave owner, and the other is sold into slavery and sent to America.
Next up, for those of you who like a little magical realism, we have The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin. In 1969 New York City, there arrives a traveling psychic who claims to be able to tell anyone the day they will die. 4 siblings go to hear their fortunes and receive their respective death dates. The story then traces their lives and how they changed after they received the devastating news. It asks the question, you knew the date you were going to die. How would you live your life?
A very interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and our next recommendation is called Cutting for Stone by Abram Verghese. And this is about twin brothers are born in 1950s Ethiopia from a secret union between an Indian nun and a British surgeon. Very interesting combination there. They are orphaned by their mother's death at birth and forsaken by their father. Deeply connected by their shared fascination with medicine, they navigate a life marked by family secrets, betrayals, and the turbulent political landscape of Ethiopia. You know, a typical Tuesday. The book is fiction, but borrows from Verghese's life experiences. Sounds really interesting.
I know. Then we have The Quinlan Sisters by Shelley Wood. This is based on the true story of the 1934 birth of the Dion sisters, the first quintuplets to survive birth and live to adulthood. They were exploited for product sponsorship as well as a tourist attraction as they had captured the interest of people all over the world. While they earned millions of dollars in these endeavors, they became destitute as adults as the money was never given to them. It's kind of a sad story, but a really good book.
Okay, and our next recommendation is The Favorite Daughter by Patty Callahan Henry. And this story follows Lena Donahue as she returns to her small South Carolina hometown where her father becomes stricken with Alzheimer's. While there, she confronts her estranged sister and brother and grapples with family secrets and resentments as they try to work together to preserve their father's life through stories and photographs.
That's so sweet. It's very sweet. Next up we have The Nightingale by Christian Hanna. This very popular book, good show too.
Yes, it's a great book.
Yes. This book is about 2 sisters who survive and resist the Nazi occupation of France during World War II. One joins the underground resistance and becomes a key figure, rescuing Allied pilots and adopting the code name, the Nightingale. The other sister adopts a Jewish boy and forges identity papers for other Jewish children. The book was inspired by accounts of André Dijon, a Belgian woman who helped downed Allied pilots escape Nazi territory. So in addition to these historical fiction books, we actually have a few nonfiction books about some famous siblings.
We couldn't resist.
Of course.
Our first recommendation is, you might have heard of them, this is The Wright Brothers by David McCullough. And this is a biography of Orville and Wilbur Wright that details their life and achievements leading up to that famous flight we're all aware of. The story highlights their entrepreneurial spirit and their determination to achieve their goal of flight.
And then we have The Romanov Sisters, The Lost Lives of the Daughters of Nicholas and Alexandra by Helen Rappaport. And this is the story of the Romanov sisters, the 4 daughters of the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II. It follows their lives from a privileged childhood to the Russian Revolution and their tragic end in 1918. But it contains previously unseen, unpublished diaries, letters, photographs, and archival material, and I hear it's excellent.
Yeah, the Romanov family has always interested me.
Oh. But now we also have a very interesting movie for you to consider that I think you recommended, Katie.
Yes, this is a movie I have seen and I love. This is a very interesting story called 3 Identical Strangers. And this movie is about identical triplets that become separated at birth and adopted by 3 different families. Years later, the reunion becomes a global sensation, but also unearths an unimaginable secret that has radical repercussions. And in this movie, they show what happens to the 3 brothers. It is not for the faint of heart, but it is such an interesting story. I highly recommend.
So there you have it, a few recommendations about our lovely sibling relationships. You know, like we said, the good, the bad, and the complicated.
Yes. And if you have any sibling stories you would like to recommend, please put them in the comments below, since sibling relationships rule a lot of our lives.
All right, until next time then, happy reading.
Take care.